Good morning, students. Today, I will speak with you on the topic Concepts for Understanding Poetry. This is Unit 2 of Introduction to English Studies, First BA, SEP or Revised NEP course. This session looks into in detail what is poetry and some of the concepts for understanding poetry. Let us begin with understanding the concepts of poetry. To begin with, let us see what is poetry. Poetry is a type of literature or it is an artistic writing that attempts to stir a reader's emotions or imagination. It is not a type of regular writing, but it is artistic. So, the intention of poetry is to stir the reader's emotions or imagination. The word poetry comes from the Greek word poesis, meaning making. It is a form of literary art that uses aesthetic and often rhythmic qualities of language to evoke meanings. These rhythmic qualities of language add meaning to the words which appear simple and normal. Poetry uses variety of techniques, and these techniques are called poetic devices. It needs these poetic devices to give the format of a poem, unlike a prose. So let us examine the elements of poetry. So what are elements of poetry? They are building blocks. They define the structure and meaning of poetry. These building blocks include rhythm, meter, rhyme, forms, stanzas, imagery, figurative language, themes, sound devices, and tones. So in this session, we will look into in brief only a few of these literary devices, but in this whole semester, we will be examining what are the different forms of poetry and how they can be applied to poems to analyze the meaning of the lines. In this session, we will learn only about literary devices. Literary devices are also called figurative languages. They are not in a literal way, they are non-literal. That means they can be understood with the help of, not in a written form, but they can be understood only with the help of some non-literal devices. They help to give a particular effect to the lines and also to enhance the meaning of the words given in the poem. So what are the functions of these literary devices? They make writing and speech more imaginative. They help the reader to engage and have a memory of the lines given in the poems. These literary devices go beyond the literal meaning of the text. They enhance communication and they are different from literal language. So when it is essential to understand these literary devices, we should know what are these figurative languages used in these poems. So why do we need these literary devices? We need them to add color and imagery to the ideas and emotions or feelings of the writer. They help to convey emotions. They help to understand the reader, the emotion explained by the writer. They help to add emphasis and give an impact to the reader about the content of the poem. They help to engage the reader so that he has to read between the lines of the poems, and so that you have a better idea of what he is learning. So some of the types of figures of speech are popularly used figures of speech are simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole, and imagery. But there are many figures of speech, many types of figures of speech. Popularly used are simile, metaphor, personification, imagery, and hyperbole. But still, there are some more figures of speech like euphemism, apostrophe, alliteration, onomatopoeia, oxymoron, synecdoche, etc. But in this session, we will delve in detail about only some of these four figures of speech. The first one is the metaphor. A metaphor directly compares dissimilar things to create imagery or understanding of the lines. They not just compare, but they help to give a direct understanding of the concept. They compare dissimilar things. Similes and metaphor are both are types of comparisons, but let us look into the differences between a simile and a metaphor later. Whereas a simile compares two dissimilar things using like or as, they give the reader a more understanding of the lines. Whereas the imagery is a literary device to evoke emotions and connect with the readers. Hyperbole is also a form of figures of speech. It is a deliberate exaggeration that adds emphasis, urgency, or excitement to a statement or a line. So, let us look into what is simile and what are the examples of similes. These two, similes and metaphors, are often confused, and the students must be careful enough to understand what is the difference between simile and metaphor. They are commonly used figures of speech. They both make comparisons, connections, and descriptions beyond literal meanings. So, a simile is a word or a phrase that compares something to something else using words like or as. Simile is also a type of metaphor. Both similes and metaphor compare two unrelated things. For example, if I say the stars twinkled, it doesn't spark the imagination. But if I say the stars twinkled like diamonds, I begin to understand how these stars are and what is the effect of stars twinkling on the viewer. So it adds meaning to the lines. Some more examples of a simile are: her smile was as bright as the sun. Her smile was like the brightness of the sun. So here please closely observe, there are two words like and as. If you identify these two words, you should understand that it is a simile. One more example here is here. The new job fit him like a glove. So which one is the identifier? How can you identify that these lines are a simile? If you look at the word like, you should understand that it is an example of a simile. For example, a new job. The new job is compared to a glove we wore to our hands. He ran like a wind. Here also you can see this word like. How did he run? He ran like a wind. Running and wind are two unrelated things. But here these two things are connected closely so that the way he ran can be compared to like that of a wind. Life is like a box of chocolates. So life and box of chocolates are unrelated things, but they are compared by using the word like. So students, if you are able to identify the simile, you should look into these two words like and as. They will help you to understand that this figures of speech or this literary device is a simile. Okay, now let us move on to the other figures of speech, the metaphor. So this is much broader than the simile. It refers to a symbol. It refers to a symbol that represents something else. It is not like or as. Like or as, these two phrases are not used in a metaphor. So for example, if in a novel, the horse that keeps appearing and disappearing is a metaphor for death. So it is not just comparison, it is the thing itself. Many of these figures of speech are literary devices or technically they are types of metaphors. How can you identify or understand that this phrase is not a simile? So metaphor is a simile, but it has no words like or as. For example, his temper was a thunderstorm. Here see, observe, his temper was like a thunderstorm. It's not given like that. His temper was a thunderstorm. So his temper and thunderstorm are not different. They are more the same or alike. So similes and metaphors, they create associations. They create a comparison and connect between two unrelated things. So there are some more examples of a metaphor, but metaphors, they are very more powerful than the simile. They come from the Greek word metaphora, meaning transfer. The meaning of the one word is transferred to the other word. It is not compared, it is not like or as, it is the word itself. So the meaning is transferred from one thing to another. It makes an assertion that something is something else as opposed to being like something else. It is not like something else, it is the same. For example, hope is the thing with feathers. Hope is not like the thing with feathers, it is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. So hope is not like a bird, hope is the bird itself. My heart is a lonely hunter that hunts on a lonely hill. Here my heart is not like a lonely hunter, it is the lonely hunter himself. So please try to understand the comparisons between similes and metaphor so that you can recognize these figures of speech in the piece of poem given to you in the exams. Now let us move on to the other figures of speech, which is termed as imagery. So imagery is the name given to the elements in the poem that sparks off the senses. So they are not comparisons, they are not like similes and metaphors. Imageries are pictures, mental pictures. If you read these lines, suddenly your senses will spark off. And as you know, there are 5 senses: your touch, taste, smell, feel, and hearing, seeing. All these senses will trigger if you read these images. So they are descriptive languages that deal with human senses. They will appeal to your human senses. They will help you to visualize and hear, and you feel as if the words are touching you. And if you read these lines, you feel that the taste is in your tongues, and even you can feel the smell of the things described in these lines. Okay, let us look into the examples of imagery. See, there are 5 senses, and these 5 senses are termed as: seeing is termed as visual, hearing is auditory, smell is olfactory, and taste is gustatory imagery, and touch, that is called tactile imagery. See, if you can analyze these lines, the crimson apple glistened in her hand. So there is an apple, it is red in color. How is it? It glistened. Glisten means it's shining in her hand. You feel as if you are holding an apple and it is shining in your hand. This is a visual imagery, example for visual imagery. The roaring thunder frightened the boy. So you can imagine the fear of the boy. He has heard this thunder and it is roaring. You feel this sound of the roar in your ears. That is auditory imagery. The smell of cinnamon wafted in the ear. So this is olfactory, that it appeals to your smell of cinnamon. It appeals to your smelling senses. Okay, now the candy melts in your mouth. So this is, you feel water droplets collecting in your mouth. If you hear this imagery, the candy melts in your mouth. That is gustatory imagery. The blanket was as soft as cat's fur. So how was the blanket? It was soft, but how soft? Like that of a cat's fur. It appears like a simile, but it gives a picture. It gives a mental image. If you read these lines, it will give an image of a cat's fur, how soft it is. It appeals to your touch or your skin. Okay, now let us move on to the next literary device or figures of speech. It's called hyperbole. So hyperboles are exaggerated statements. So they are claims not meant to be taken literally. That means they say a small thing is exaggerated so high that you cannot take it literally. You cannot say that it is true, but it is an exaggerated statement. So it adds to the drama. It loads up on the drama. Why is this exaggeration? It is for the sake of emphasis. So such exaggerations are commonly used in novels, poetry, politics, and advertising slogans. So some of the examples of hyperbole are: this suitcase weighs a ton. So if you take the literal meaning of these words, it's impossible. It is exaggerated. The weight of the suitcase is not like that of a ton, but it appears so heavy that the reader says that it is like a ton. I'm so tired, I could sleep for a year. This is also impossible. If you are tired, how long can you sleep? Not for a year, right? So this is exaggerated and it is not real. But the amount of tiredness is indicated by the amount of rest you need. So that is example of hyperbole. He ran faster than a wind. His running speed is compared to that of a wind, but that is impossible, right? But still, you feel a sense of drama if you read these lines. It's so cold, even the polar bears are shivering. So polar bears they breed and live in Arctic countries or cold countries, but even they are shivering means imagine the amount of cold the person is feeling. So in order to intensify the coldness the person is experiencing, he exaggerates by comparing his coldness to that of even the polar bears are shivering. That joke was so funny, I nearly died laughing. See, here also you can observe, nobody will die of laughing, that's true. But the joke was so funny. In order to exaggerate the funny quality of that joke, such exaggerations are used. I have a million things to do. So here also you can find example for hyperbole. I have told you 1,000 times. So this is the commonly used phrase by our elders and our teachers. They say that I have told you 1,000 times. That also is an example for hyperbole. This is the best day ever. So in order to you are experiencing the best quality of your day, and it is said in these using these words. Okay, dear students, I think in this session that much we have learnt. We have learnt about the literary devices and why they are essential for poetry. Some of the figures of speech which you have learnt in this session are simile, metaphor, imagery and hyperbole. Go through this PPT once again if you need for more examples, and be clear about the definitions and examples of simile, metaphor, imagery and hyperbole, so that you can identify these figures of speech in your text.